The fall Sophia's fingers flew across the keyboard, the glow of the monitor casting sharp shadows on her face. It was past midnight, and the office was silent, except for the hum of servers and the occasional rustle of paper. She was close to cracking the final piece of their new encryption protocol. Behind her, David paced, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was smooth, practiced. "Yes, Mr. Carter, the demo will be ready by Friday. We won't disappoint you." He caught Sophia's eye and winked, that same boyish grin that had made her fall for him 6 years ago at Stanford. When he hung up, he spun her chair around. "We got it." "Carter Industries is in?" Sophia exhaled, a smile breaking through her exhaustion. "That's our biggest client yet." "Thanks to you," David murmured, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "You're the genius behind all this." She leaned into his touch, savoring the warmth of his hand against her cheek. For a moment, it was just like the beginning when they'd stayed up all night in his dorm room, dreaming of building something revolutionary. 3 years later, Nova Security occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise. Success had come fast, too fast. Maybe. Sophia barely recognized their lives anymore. David was always in meetings, always schmoozing investors, always on. She buried herself in code, building the systems that kept their clients safe. But somewhere along the way, they'd stopped being partners and started being strangers who shared an apartment. Then came Lillian Sharp, polished with a laugh that carried across rooms. She'd been hired to expand their financial sector clients, and David had taken to her immediately. "She's exactly what we need," he'd said. Watching Lillian charm a room of bankers, Sophia had nodded, ignoring the twist in her gut. The first sign was small. David started working late client dinners, he'd say, coming home smelling of wine and a perfume that wasn't hers. Then the texts. He'd leave his phone face down now, something he'd never done before. Sophia told herself she was imagining things until... The night she walked into the conference room and saw them. Lillian's back was pressed against the table, David's hands tangled in her hair, documents scattered, forgotten. Sophia didn't make a sound. She stepped back, closed the door softly, and walked out of the building. In their penthouse, she packed one suitcase. Number note, no scream, no scene. Just her laptop, her research, and the necklace her father had given her when she graduated. She left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter at the airport. She bought a one-way ticket to Portland. As the plane took off, she finally let herself cry, not for David, but for the woman she'd been before she loved him. Her phone buzzed. David's name flashed on the screen. She turned it off. The rain in Portland was different. It didn't pour like the summer storms back in San Francisco. It lingered, a soft, misty veil that clung to the city like a whisper. Sophia stood under the awning of her new apartment building, watching droplets race down the gutter. This is where I disappeared. She had chosen Portland for its quiet anonymity. No tech giants, no startup culture buzzing in every coffee shop. Just a city where she could fade into the background. A new name, a new life. The lease was signed under Alina Marcos, her mother's maiden name. The apartment was small, just a studio with a view of the Willamette River, but it was hers. No shared memories, no ghosts of a past life. She set up her laptop at the rickety dining table. The glow of the screen, the only light in the dim room. For weeks, she barely left. Takeout containers piled up in the trash. Sleep came in, erratic bursts between lines of code. The algorithm she'd been working on at Nova Security had been flawed. She saw that now. David had pushed for a faster rollout, but she had known it needed more layers, more adaptability. Now, with nothing but time and rage fueling her, she rebuilt it from scratch. The first sparked the coffee shop around. The corner became her only outing. She'd sit in the corner, scribbling equations in a notebook, drowning in black coffee. That's where Marcus found her. "You've been working on that for 3 hours?" he said, sliding into the chair across. From her, either you're a genius or you're running from something. Sophia Lana glanced up. He was older, mid-40s, with salt and pepper stubble and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Both," she said flatly. He laughed, ordered 2 more coffees, and didn't ask again, turned out. Marcus wasn't just a random stranger, he was a patent attorney who had represented some of the biggest tech firms in the country. When she finally showed him her notes, his expression shifted. "This isn't just an upgrade," he said slowly. "This is a revolution." Aegis Tech, with Marcus's help, she filed the patents under Elena Marcos. No ties to Nova Security, no ties to David. Funding came next. She didn't pitch to big investors. Didn't want the attention? Instead, she found Juliet, a former NSA cryptographer who had left the agency after too many bureaucratic headaches. Juliet took one look at the algorithm and said, "You're either insane or brilliant." Again, Elena deadpanned. Both. They set up shop in a rented office space downtown, just the two of them at first, then a handful of engineers Juliet trusted. Aegis Tech was born. The first strike, their first product, Aegis Core, was a silent earthquake in the cybersecurity world. Government agencies tested it, financial institutions begged for early access, and, most satisfying of all Nova Security's clients, started defecting. David's company, built on the foundation of her work, was suddenly scrambling to keep up. Juliet smirked as she read the latest industry report. Nova's stock dropped 12% this week. They're calling their encryption outdated. Elena didn't smile. But she didn't have to. The first mistake, then came the email from David Bennett, subject, "Who is Elena Marcos?" She deleted it without opening it, but the message was clear. He was looking for her, and sooner or later he would find out. The email from David sat like a ghost in Elena's trash folder. Unread, unanswered. She had expected him to dig, of course, but she hadn't expected the speed of it. Juliet leaned against her desk, arms crossed. He's going to figure it out eventually. Elena tapped a pen against her lips. Let him. The offer 2 weeks later, the call came. Theo, Aegis Tech's newly hired CEO, a charismatic former Google exec who handled the public side of things, burst into Elena's office. Nova Security just made an offer. Elena didn't look up from her screen for Tobias. It got her attention. Theo dropped the letter on her desk. The letterhead was unmistakable, Nova's sleek silver logo. The signature at the bottom, David Bennett. Proposal for acquisition of Aegis Tech. Elena's fingers tightened on the paper. Theo whistled. He's offering $300 million. Juliet, standing in the doorway, snorted. He's desperate. Elena set the letter down carefully. Tell him no. Theo blinked. You don't even want to negotiate? She met his gaze. I want him to bleed. The leak, Lillian Mercer, had never been good at losing, as Nova's chief strategy officer and David's now wife. She had spent the last year watching Aegis Tech steal their clients, their contracts, their relevance. So when she found out who Elena Marcos really was, she didn't tell David, she leaked it to the press. The headline, Tech Digest exclusive. Aegis Tech's founder revealed his ex-wife of Nova Security's CEO. The article dropped at midnight. By 8 a.m., Elena's phone was a graveyard of notifications. Missed calls from Marcus, texts from Juliet, voicemails from reporters, and one email, marked urgent, from David. Subject, we need to talk. She deleted that one too. The fallout, Theo paced Elena's office like a caged animal. This changes everything. Juliet, ever the pragmatist, shrugged. Not really. Our tech still works. But the damage wasn't about the tech. It was about the story. Scorned wife builds empire to crush ex's company. Aegis Tech's board panicked. Investors demanded meetings. Competitors circled like vultures. And David showed up at her office, the confrontation Elena hadn't seen. Him, in 5 years, he looked older, thinner. The charming, effortless confidence he'd once worn like a second skin was frayed at the edges. Sophia, he said softly. Elena, she corrected. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I didn't know it was you. That was the point. David stepped closer. You've been sabotaging Nova for years, she laughed. I've been building something better. If that hurts you, that's not my problem. His jaw tightened. You're doing this for revenge. No, she said, leaning back in her chair. Revenge would mean I still care. She gestured to the Aegis logo on the wall. This is just business. For the first time, David looked afraid. The move that night, Alina made a call. Marcus answered on the first ring. I assume you've seen the news. I have. She stared out at the Portland skyline. It's time for phase 2. There was a pause. Then Marcus chuckled. You're really going to do it, aren't you? Alina smiled. Tell the consortium we're in. The endgame, the Wellington Capital Consortium, was a group of investors with one goal: to acquire struggling tech firms and rebuild them. Nova Security, with its plummeting stock and fleeing clients, was the perfect target. In Aegis Tech, they wanted Alina to lead the takeover. The boardroom of Wellington Capital was colder than Alina expected. She sat at the long mahogany table, flanked by Marcus and Theo, facing a wall of suits who held Nova Security's fate in their hands. The air smelled of expensive coffee and sharper things: ambition, desperation. On the other side of the table, David sat with Nova's executives. His knuckles were white where they gripped his pen. Next to him, Lillian's manicured fingers tapped impatiently against her tablet. Let's begin, said Richard Wellington, the silver-haired patriarch of the consortium. We're prepared to offer $2.1 billion for controlling interest in Nova Security. A murmur rippled through Nova's team. David's jaw tightened. That's a 30% undervaluation. Richard smiled. Given your Q3 losses and the Aegis migration of your top clients, we consider it generous. Lillian's heel clicked against the floor. This is a hostile takeover. No, Alina spoke for the first time, her voice cutting through the room. It's a lifeline. Every head turned toward her. David's expression flickered, something raw and unguarded, before hardening. The power shift 2 hours later? The terms were set. Wellington Capital would acquire 51% of Nova Aegis Tech, would merge operations under the Nova brand. Alina Marcos would become Chief Technology Officer of the new entity, the Kicker. David would remain CEO in name only. All technical and strategic decisions would require Alina's approval, as the lawyers finalized paperwork. David cornered her in the hallway. You planned this from the beginning, he accused, his voice low. Alina adjusted the cuff of her blazer. I built a better company. The rest is just math. His hand caught her wrist. Come back now, to humiliate me. She looked down at his fingers, then up at him with icy calm. I came back because this was always mine. You just didn't know it yet. Behind them, Lillian's voice cut through the tension. David, we're needed inside. Alina smiled. Better not keep your wife waiting. The unraveling that night, Nova's internal servers were breached, not by hackers, not by competitors. By Lillian, Juliet burst into Elaine's hotel suite at 1:17 a.m. She's wiping the backups. Every proprietary algorithm, every client vault gone by morning unless we stop it. Lena was already pulling on her coat. Where's
David at the office?
He doesn't know. Of course he didn't. Lillian had always been the strategist. The trap sprung. Nova's headquarters was dark except for the glow of Lillian's monitor. Alina entered the server room alone. You're too late, Lillian said without turning around. Another 10 minutes, and Nova's intellectual property disappears forever. Why? Because if I can't have it, neither can you. Lillian finally swiveled her chair, eyes gleaming with something unhinged. David built this company with me, not you. Lena stepped closer, watching the progress bar on the screen. 78% deleted. You're right, she said quietly. He did. Then she pulled a flash drive from her pocket and plugged it into the mainframe. Lillian. Lunge too late, the screen flashed red. Termination canceled Aegis protocol. Ian Gigelina smiled. I always build back doors. The reckoning at dawn, 2 things happened. Lillian Mercer was arrested for corporate sabotage. Bennett resigned as CEO of Nova Security. The press release cited personal reasons. The industry knew better by noon. Richard Wellington offered Alina the CEO position by 3 p.m. She declined. I don't want your company, she told a stunned boardroom. I never did. Then she walked out, not as Sophia Bennett, not even as Alina Marcos, but as something new entirely. The morning after the storm, Alina stood on the balcony of her Portland penthouse, watching the Willamette River carve its relentless path through the city. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Congratulations from investors, interview requests from journalists. Anxious queries from Nova's board. She ignored them all. The game wasn't over yet. The offer Marcus arrived at noon, bearing two things. A bottle of 25-year-old Macallan A resignation letter. You're really walking away? He poured the whiskey into crystal glasses. After everything? Alina took the drink, swirling the amber liquid. I got what I wanted. And what was that? Revenge. She smiled. Freedom. The truth was simple. She had never wanted Nova. She had. Only ever wanted to prove she could take it. Now that she had. The victory tasted... ... Hollow the visitor David came to her that evening. No suit, no pretenses. Just a man standing in the rain outside her building, looking up at her balcony like a ghost from another life. She let him in. For a long moment they simply studied each other. The years had carved new lines into his face, but his eyes were the same, bright with intelligence, shadowed with regret. You won, he said finally. Alina handed him a towel. That was never the point. I know. David ran a hand through his damp hair. I looked for you after you left.
Ah.
And yet you married Lillian. His laugh was bitter. I thought you were gone forever. Silence stretched between them, thick with everything unsaid. Then David reached into his coat pocket and slid a folded document across the table. Alina recognized it immediately. Their original partnership agreement from Stanford. Back when Nova was just scribbles on a napkin, I kept it all these years, he said quietly. Page 7, Clause 3. She didn't need to look. She remembered every word. In the event of dissolution, all intellectual property reverts to its creator. David met her gaze. Nova was built on your algorithms, which means ... Elena's breath caught. ... It's always been yours. The end game 1 week later, the tech world erupted with news. Nova Security dissolved. Its assets absorbed into Aegis. Tech David Bennett retired from the industry entirely. Ina Marcos announced a new venture, Phoenix Fund, a non-profit dedicated to mentoring women in STEM. At the press conference, a reporter asked the inevitable question, was this always about revenge? Lena looked out at the sea of faces and smiled. No, she said. It was about remembering who I was before I loved him and who I became after. Epilogue. Fire and ashes years later, a letter arrived at Elena's foundation. No return address. Just a single sentence in familiar handwriting. Some fires don't destroy, they refine. She tucked it into her desk drawer, next to a faded Stanford napkin and a silver wedding band, and got back to work.